Hi, welcome back to Focus on the Future. This week we're going to talk to Rick Pfefferman. He's a consumer advocate attorney who's got a ton of information on ways to avoid being ripped off. But before we get there, I need to address a question that came to us at focusonthefuture.tv. Keisha asked us, do I really need to fill out the FAFSA form if I'm not going to use student aid? Well, let me answer your question, Keisha, with a question of my own. My question is, if the school that you're planning on attending were to offer you a free scholarship, would you turn it down? Free money is a great thing, and I think that we should all take advantage of that. So, you make that decision, Keisha. But let's go talk to Rick Pfefferman.
Have you ever felt like you shouldn't have purchased something after you've walked out of the store? If so, you're in a big boat. Many of us suffer from something called buyer's remorse. It's even worse when we find out that we've actually might have paid too much for or bought something extra that we really didn't need. Today, we're at the offices of Rick Pfefferman, a consumer advocate attorney. Rick is going to answer our questions about some common rip-offs that many of us would like to avoid in the future. Welcome to Focus on the Future, Rick.
Thanks for having me back, Skip.
Good to see you, sir. Tell us a little bit about what you do. What is a consumer advocate attorney?
We are the only law firm in New Mexico that does this full-time. I'm a professional do-gooder. So our practice is limited strictly to representing consumers. We sue car dealers, abusive debt collectors, predatory lenders, credit reporting agencies, and other vermin.
Now, you sue them based on what your clients coming to you have had happen to them, correct?
Right. We just sit and wait for the phone to ring.
And I can imagine that it never stops ringing.
It's pretty busy.
It seems to me that around every corner there's another guy trying to rip you off. In fact, I'll bet some of our viewers have had this similar experience. I walked in to buy a new cell phone, one of these smartphones, and new contract, all of that. And as I'm walking, the deal's about to close, I'm about to walk out of the store, the guy says, wait a minute. He said, do you realize that this phone only has a 1-year warranty on it? And I thought, well, okay. You know, should it have more? And he says, you know what? He says, for only 20% of the contract, I can sell you an extended warranty for 2 years. I didn't buy it.
Wasn't that thoughtful of him?
Yeah, I thought so. Should I have purchased that?
No.
No, definitely not?
No, those are high profit items. You know, the kind of people who should get that kind of protection are my stepdaughter, who is away at college and things disappear from dorm rooms and pocketbooks and lockers and things like that. So maybe having insurance or service contract makes some sense in that situation.
Would you say that on most things that are purchased that service contracts are a waste of money?
We strongly recommend against it, whether it's an automobile or a stereo system or anything.
It probably makes sense. I kind of wanted to ask the guy, well, do you mean the thing's not going to last longer than a year? I mean, come on, I'm paying, what, $200 for this thing? It's only going to last a year? That was my thought process. So, yeah, probably a ripoff.
I'm with you, Skip.
You know, there's also some big ripoffs going on in the used car market, and that seems to be rather a constant. Seems to me there are two ways you can buy a car, used car, that is. You can buy one from a dealer, obviously, or you can buy one from an individual. Which is the best way?
Well, there are advantages to each. The interesting point is that sometimes you think you're buying from an individual and you're actually buying from a dealer.
Really? How does that work?
There are all these rebuilders that are out there. And what they do is they go down to the auctions and buy wrecked cars.
A car that maybe has been totaled by an insurance company?
Totaled or badly damaged.
Okay.
And I'll show you a typical example of this from our practice.
Yeah?
Yes.
Great.
This first photograph that I'm going to show you is from the insurance company. It's what the vehicle looked like when it was destroyed in an accident on the Navajo reservation.
Looks pretty beat up to me.
It was a GSA vehicle, and they sold it at the Copart Auto Auction. And somebody, this guy's rebuilder, bought this wrecked vehicle. And then he bought separately the frame from a second vehicle that burned to the ground in Michigan. And he married the frame from the other vehicle to this, put some new parts on it, cleaned it up, shined it up.
Wow.
And this is what he produced. And it
looks
looked
like a brand new truck.
It looked like new. We call this Franken truck. And so then, in order to maintain the charade, he advertised it in the Quick Quarter, Penny Saver, one of those
whatever,
kind
right.
of things. And you can see the ad here, where it gives the specs for the car,
Right.
and then it says excellent condition, and sold it for $14,500, a little bit below book value. So our client thought she was getting a deal.
And it turned out she was getting the business instead.
She got jobs.
What eventually happened with the truck? How did she find out that she had been defrauded?
Well, she had a friend who knew a little bit about vehicles, and when he came to visit her, he took a look at that, and he could tell instantly. People in the business can. He said, this truck's been in a wreck.
Wow.
And she had no idea. And we had to sue this fellow. It turned out that he and his son had been buying hundreds of these vehicles at wrecked car auctions and rebuilding them in their backyard and then selling them on their own. I had another case like that where somebody was selling a vehicle up in Tanawon, and he was in cahoots with some guy in the South Valley who bought wrecked vehicles. They fixed him up in a haphazard way and then took him up to his place in Tanawon, and he gave him a song and dance about how he bought it for his niece and it was too small, and then he was just selling it, and people buy it.
Sure. Well, there's a chump on every corner.
Yeah.
You know?
So vehicles, you have to be careful no matter where you're going. Generally, you're going to pay a lower price buying from an individual, but you're taking some risks. At least a dealer, many of the dealers are established businesses, and they're going to be there if you have a problem and you come back. And the dealers have a $50,000 surety bond to protect the public against fraud.
And there's also a law, I think, that requires a dealer to extend maybe a 15-day, 30-day warranty.
New Mexico has a limited provision for the first 500 miles or 15 days, whichever comes first. If there's something wrong with the used car, you can bring it back. The dealer has to fix it. Can't charge you more than $25 to fix it.
Beautiful.
So this protects against driving a vehicle off the lot and it just collapses on the street.
Yeah, and I'm sure that's true in a lot of states as well, because we're watched all over the country, and as a result, there's going to be some question. Probably these people that have a question about what is covered, they should contact their Attorney General's office, perhaps.
The New Mexico Attorney General's office has a Consumer Protection Division, which is a good place to call if you have a problem.
Right, and in other states, probably Attorney Generals have the same kind of provisions, you would think?
Yes.
Now, couldn't this woman that bought this truck have been protected by Carfax? How come she didn't do that?
Carfax is a bit of a scam itself.
Really?
If you've ever read a Carfax report, and I just happen to have one with me, this will shock you.
Yeah.
This is in the fine print on the first page of the Carfax document, and it's one of 4 separate disclaimers on the Carfax document. And it says, this Carfax vehicle history report is based only on information supplied to Carfax. Other information about this vehicle, including problems, may not have been reported to Carfax. So use this report as one important tool along with a vehicle inspection and test drive to make a better decision. And the problem is that there are all kinds of accidents that happen that aren't reported to Carfax. So it's a very incomplete database. There's a second reporting service called AutoCheck, which is slightly better when it comes to reporting auto accidents. But if the dealer's showing you a Carfax and it says, see, no accident, therefore you're guaranteed, that's a load of bull. That is not true at all.
Well, that's right. Who reports accidents to Carfax? I mean, would they come from insurance companies? Where would that data come from?
Some insurance companies report. However, not all insurance companies do report to Carfax. They don't buy all that. And very importantly, rental companies don't report to Carfax because they're self-insured.
Sure.
So if these dealers go out and they buy vehicles from Hertz, Avitz, Thrifty, that may have been in accidents, and there's no record in any insurance database or on Carfax that these vehicles have been wrecked and repaired.
So your opinion would be, my spending my money on a Carfax report, I might as well be doing what with it?
It's helpful for some things. It will tell you how many owners there are of the vehicle, how many times it's been registered, whether it was ever registered as a former daily rental car. That's useful information.
Okay.
And sometimes it raises red flags. If you see something that was a former daily rental and the rental company sold it after 6 months, that's like waving a red flag at you saying this thing's been wrecked and they dumped it on the market.
Ah, gotcha, gotcha. So let's move on to new cars for just a little bit.
Sure.
Is that a better place to buy a car? I mean, at least I know that when I'm looking at a new car, I know it hadn't been in a wreck. I know it hadn't been in a flood. I know it hasn't been used in a crime, so I'm probably okay.
Probably. There's certainly a much better chance that none of those things have happened,
Okay.
although we've brought half a dozen cases against car dealers for selling vehicles that have been wrecked or that are used that are sold as new.
You're kidding me.
No. You know, they sell them, somebody takes it home, they drive it, they may get in an accident, they may take it off-road, the financing falls through, and then the dealer yanks the car back, cleans it up, and sells it as new.
Well, there you go. Sure, makes sense.
Yes, it was some song and dance. So generally, you're safer buying a new car, but that's a lot more expensive.
Well,
you should be able to buy a used car without worry.
Well, you should be able to, in theory.
Yeah.
But I guess what I've heard you say is that really there is no absolute lockbox that's going to guarantee you that.
There isn't. We tell people to take a used car that you're thinking of buying before you sign the contract.
That's the key.
This is rocket science here. And you take it into an auto body shop and you ask them to do a wreck check. These guys are pros. They can look at it, they can walk around the car just like any used car manager, and they can spot damage, paint damage, body panel replacements, all kinds of things pretty quickly. So that's one thing you can do to protect yourself.
And you would recommend that in every case on a used car,
I do it.
regardless if it's a private individual, even somebody you know.
Absolutely.
Okay, makes sense to me. Let me come back to this new car thing, because one of the common complaints that I hear, and I imagine you do too, happens after the deal's been made with the salesman in the finance office, as they call it.
Yeah.
What goes on there exactly?
Evil. Pure evil.
Yeah, that's what I've heard.
You think you've bought a car.
Right.
Okay. And you've negotiated a price with the salesman, and they've gone through this, oh, let me go check with my manager, and they come back, and then they, oh, well, I can't take that amount, let me check with my manager, and they go back and they have a cup of coffee, or they watch TV, and they come back again, and finally you reach some kind of agreement on price. When you go into the finance office, you start negotiating all over again, because they are going to try to sell you a whole bunch of finance products, which is where the car dealer often makes much more money than on the car itself.
Really?
Yeah. So they try to sell you service contracts, gap insurance, credit, life, and health insurance. I mean, these are typical documents from a car deal that they talk clients into buying. A service contract for $2,000. Gap insurance for $500. Fabric sealant, limited 5-year warranty. Vinyl leather sealant, limited 5-year warranty. Paint sealant, limited 5-year warranty. Vehicle protection program. These are garbage. All of these products are a waste of your money.
I can see that you feel that way.
Yes. So you can spend $4,000 extra in the finance office and add, $100 or $150 to your monthly payment.
Yeah, because they're going to finance this over the life of that loan, aren't they?
Oh yeah, and then you're paying the interest on all this stuff.
Yeah, well, I can see where that's bad.
Right.
Now, one thing you did say
Yes.
that I kind of want to focus in on, you said the gap insurance for $500.
Yeah.
I agree that's way too much money to spend.
Right.
But would you recommend that a person who could be upside down in an auto loan, in other words, owe more than the car is worth,
Yeah.
and they can buy the gap insurance from their insurance company directly for maybe $100, $150, would that be a good buy?
It would be less of a tragedy. You'll
Probably
never
makes
get
sense.
me to agree.
Well-
but you know, the dealers pay $100 for the gap insurance, and they sell it for $500 to $700.
Right.
An unconscionable markup.
Agreed.
So if your insurance company is selling it for $150, at least you got a fighting chance of paying a fair price for the product.
Makes sense to me.
Yeah.
Let me ask just one last question, and
Sure.
that would be that if I am a consumer who feels like that I've made a bad deal, I've
Yeah.
signed on the bottom line, I mean, and I've walked out of the finance office and I feel like, oh my gosh, I really shouldn't have done this deal. Is there a time limit where I can change my mind, number one? And then secondly, if I'm beyond that time limit, if there is one, what are my legal remedies?
The answer is no, there is no time limit. There's a popular misconception that you have 3 days to think it over. That's not true. You're
Really?
screwed as soon as you put your name on the contract. So it's rarely a good idea to go into a car dealership and sign the contract that day. It's always better to go home and think about it overnight. You know, and they're going to give you this song and dance about, well, this is today's price. I have another customer who's interested in it. I can't guarantee I'm going to sell it to you tomorrow. All you say is, look, I've lived all my life without this car. I can live another day. I'll be back tomorrow.
Makes a lot of sense. Kind of a follow-up to that, one of the things I've noticed when I'm buying a car is there seems to be an awful lot of paper involved with it. I mean, oh my gosh. And you're signing one thing after the other.
Yeah.
Pretty
Why do you
soon
think
just,
that is?
I don't know. Tell me.
Well, because there's such a stack of paper that they want to just get you signing and then sign the next one and sign the next one because you want to get out of there. You've already been there for hours. And they don't want you reading everything that's in that contract. So, I mean, you know, if you're buying a new car, you're going to get the window sticker should be on the car.
Right.
If you're buying a new or used car, you sign a purchase agreement or buyer's order. You know, you want to look on that. A lot of times, even though you haven't asked for it, they bury in it the cost of a service contract or credit life insurance that you didn't ask for. And you have to spot that in there to make sure that you're not buying something you didn't want and paying extra. You have to sign a retail installment contract, you know, with all the fine print on the back. Nobody understands these things. Lawyers barely understand them. You have to make sure that the price on the contract is the same price you've negotiated.
Might not
You know,
be.
You want to take a few minutes to do that. If the salesman's told you that they're going to give you floor mats, they have you sign a we owe document. It better say that there are floor mats on there, because if it doesn't, you're not getting your floor mats.
Right.
Or you're going to have to pay for them.
Right.
There's an as-is document that's required by the Federal Trade Commission, determining what kind of warranty you're getting. There's an odometer disclosure document, which is an attempt to violate federal law and tell you what the odometer is. There are all kinds of pieces of paper. The one thing that you should look at if you're buying a used car is the motor vehicle's title. Federal law requires that the seller, the dealer, show you that title and get your signature on that title certificate, along with giving the odometer disclosure at that time.
And what does that do for you to be able to see that title? What do you learn by doing that?
Well, first of all, you learn whether or not the dealer actually owns the vehicle.
Makes sense.
Yeah. Oh, well, the title is about to arrive. Well, I'll tell you, then my payment is about to arrive once the title's here.
There you go. There you go.
Show me the document that proves you own the vehicle. Second, when you look at the title, you'll see who the prior registered owner was. You'll see the odometer disclosure information. A lot of times that's really useful because it will tell you whether it's a former daily rental car, which is something you may want to avoid. I don't know about you, but I don't use the same loving care on a rental vehicle that I do with my own vehicle.
Most people don't.
And you want to know that
Sure.
before you're buying, because it's not worth as much money.
True.
You want to know if that vehicle was owned by somebody who lived out in the middle of the Navajo reservation, because they may have been driving this thing on dirt roads and pulling it through mud.
Well, we're just darn near out of time, so but I just kind of want to wrap this by
Sure.
saying that it seems to me that everything I've heard you say today
Yeah.
comes back to due diligence from a consumer standpoint.
Right.
Do your homework, cross the T's, dot the I's, make sure before you sign the deal.
Take your time.
Indeed. Thanks for being with us, Rick. Very informative once again.
You're welcome,
Good
Steve.
to see you.
Thanks.
Emily, what'd you think of that?
I thought it was great, man. Not only was it informative, but it was definitely amusing.
I think so. What did you learn in terms of gap insurance? You told me something off camera earlier.
Well, I did, and I wish I had known when I purchased my vehicle a few years ago that gap insurance could be purchased elsewhere than the dealership. I swear they told me that you had to buy the gap insurance right then, right there in the financing, or else you lose out on the option.
As Rick said, you walk in that financing office and it's like you're buying the car all over again. It's a brand new bet. And unfortunately, you also financed that $700 you paid for the gap insurance, didn't you?
Wish I had known that a few years ago.
So based on the interest rate you paid, let's say you probably paid $1,200 for that gap insurance over the life of your loan?
When I could have bought it from my local insurance agent at maybe $100.
Maybe $100 to $150. So check with your insurance company, folks, before you buy the gap insurance because it's a lot cheaper there.
Don't get pushed around by these salespeople. This is their job. They're making money on these different things that they're selling you. Bottom line, don't get pushed around.
Yes, indeed. As Rick said in his final conversation, do the due diligence. You'll be fine.
It was great information. I think we all learned something from that, and especially these extended warranties. They're usually a high profit item that most of us don't need.
Generally speaking, that's a ripoff.
Yeah, that's it.
All right, we'll be right back with the Stock Market Corner.
Thanks, guys. Hi, welcome back. Today's money management maxim is that using credit creates debt. I know that seems fairly obvious, right? I'm sure you've all heard these numerous statistics about how Americans have thousands and thousands of dollars of debt. So how do you avoid being part of that statistic? Well, credit in and of itself, it's really not a bad thing. In fact, when buying a car or a home or even financing your education, it can be a good thing. However, credit should be handled carefully so that it's not controlling you. It can be a slippery slope when you keep opening up credit cards at your favorite stores or take out more money than you need for school. I know it's really tempting to furnish your place on credit, but can you really afford it? Plus, if you can't afford it, the store may be able to repossess the furniture, so then your place would be empty. Well, I like to think about credit this way. If I'm in a store looking at a super cute shirt for $25, I happen to put on my credit card, well, that shirt could end up costing me like $100. When you carry a balance on your credit card, the item that you purchased ends up costing way more than what the store was selling it for. So yeah, the shirt was cute for $25, but I would never pay $100 for it. No one consciously thinks that they want to be in debt, but looking at your spending patterns and your checking account balance can reveal that you may need to reevaluate. The bottom line, you don't have to be in debt. The simple formula is to avoid debt, just don't spend more than you make. I know that you can be debt-free. I'll see you next week.